Forever is the strangest thing. It's shorter than you think. No think. Longing is the music of our sphere. The gift of life is never more or less. It starts at any time you like and ends in just a wink. Pass me the lighter, baby.
Pomaria whakawalahi atu. Welcome to the Daily Examiner. My name is Alatiki Lei. Very welcome to our program tonight. Now, tonight, of course, we're going to be speaking to a person who has had a lot of rumours and gossip and everything in between, whether they're accurate or not. Our team were absolutely wonderful in being able to find this person. This is, of course, the man in the blue hat. Now, I have also spoken with him a few times. He's in a semi-rural area. I'm not sure whether it's an Antifa conference or not, but we'll have a chat to him about that. However, you can let me know whether his online issues are going hardcore, because his internet apparently is not so great. Now, I do want to also bring up to you, this is of course the person who we're going to be speaking on, someone who has gendered a little bit of controversy within the groups who are around here. This is a person here. Alright. And this is the man here. Alright, so of course in the police escalation, when police were incredibly violent in some of their mechanisms and their actions that they did against the protests, there was some concern around this gentleman here who was seemingly in the mix and was around there. So we're going to have a little chat with him now, and we'll see if this is going to happen there. This is, here we go. So I just want to bring this up to your attention. This is the man here. This is the person here who was apparently, possibly whether he was Antifa, whether he was a mobile plant, whether he was police, whether he was one of those who did some severe disruption. All right, there are some photos there of this gentleman here, as well as his friend. All right, this guy and his two friends seem very out of place. This actually occurred quite a lot, so there were a lot of rumours and discussions going on around that area. And so we wanted to be able to find what was the truth, what was going on there, what was the reality of it as well, especially since there was a lot of damage being done to those groups. Now, as per usual, anyone who'd like to have a comment or question, please throw it in there. I can see a great deal of comments already coming into place there. Yes, I can also see that some people are wondering if he's Clark Gayford going off to a rehab clinic. That's one of the ones. I've just been a bit dry there. That's absolutely fine. Now, his name is Robert Wilson, just to let you know. That is his name. And he is a man who has a few things going on in his life that he is dealing with, and that's why we are so glad to have him on board with us. He's actually just popped off the line. Like I said, he's got some issues with his internet. He's semi-rural. So I'm going to have a little look in our comment section in the meantime. It's going so fast, it's actually quite difficult to find. Yes, also a question came up, was he wearing a vest? Could you ask? Yes, I do want to ask that. There were rumours going on that he actually had a stab-proof vest on. That was one of the big one. Someone has said there that he's a teacher as well. One of the big ones that they've got there, of course. Hurry up. Yes, Joe, thank you very much, that's fine. Good on you. Here he is, the man. His name is Robert Wilson. Robert, g'day, how are you?
Good, thanks, Elliot. Yeah, we're having massive internet issues here, but I'm back on again, so we'll do the best we can. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, good on you. Alright, so before we lose you, we're going to throw in some more heavy stuff. Are you Antifa? Are you a mobile plant? Are you a police underscore? Are you some sort of violent interrupter? What's going on?
I'm just an average Joe. I have a business and I manage a family farm in Southland, and I have been up at the protest a couple of times and stepped in to try and stop people turning it into a violent riot, which is sadly what ended up developing. That's my role there.
Absolutely, yeah, well said, well said. Some of the people do think that you were trying to guard the tent, that you seem to be acting really calm outside of that, especially in terms of the photos that were being taken. What would your comment be for those people who say, oh my gosh, he looked like he was being a guard, or he looked like he was too calm? What would your comment be to that?
With regard to being calm, the business that I have is a helicopter-based venison recovery and culling business. It's very high risk. Anyone who knows what that is knows that there are a lot of accidents. It's a very high stress, high risk occupation. A lot of people have been killed doing it. I'm engaged in that on a regular basis, daily basis when we're busy. I've learned how to manage stress in high risk situations very well. And yeah, right. Also, can you tell us what that photo there? Now, we're not sure if we lost him. We may have lost him. I believe this is Robert here as well. He has actually gained a lot of work and experience in that real deep rural sector. It looks like he's dropped off the line. That's fine. He'll jump back on. And so this is actually the man who is in that. Right now, let's have a little gaz here as well, because we want to make sure that we're not so doing some sort of tricky. I can already see that some people say, "Ash, that's not him. He looks different." And I think that there is some things that we need to probably look at quite strongly. One of the ones that we do also want to have a look at is some of the live videos that actually went on that showed what he was about, what he was doing. And so, yeah, like you said, he is in the rural sector.
He is someone who has to work with some high-level, high-risk areas. This, of course, is very strong about New Zealand. A lot of the people who were there were not just from Auckland. They were not just from Wellington or Christchurch. Many of them came from across the country, came from different walks of life, different experiences. Some of them were vaxxed, some of them were double with even a booster. But they were all there under one unified flag to make sure that the government knew damn well that taking freedoms was absolutely unacceptable. Robert's just come back online. G'day, Robert. Good to see you again. Now, just to jump in there again, in terms of that, some people are saying, "Oh, that's not the guy. That's not the fellow who was presented in that." A couple of weird questions. You had on something that looked like to some people a stab-proof vest. Was that you? Was that a stab-proof vest? And was there a friend that you were with?
Yes, that was most definitely me. No, I was not wearing a stab-proof vest or any sort of a vest. You know, I'm a pretty relaxed, calm guy, as has been shown in the video, but you know, some of the comments that have been made around that video are quite frankly laughable. I'm quite happy to come and talk to anyone who thinks that I was wearing a stab-proof vest or that I'm Antifa or a cop, and meet them, talk to them, and I'll wear my hoodie and my hat and my glasses so that they can ascertain that in fact there's a seam that runs down the hoodie that makes it appear that there may be something underneath it, but in fact it's not. Yeah. A lot of keyboard warriors were never there. I can contact a woman who took the footage, and she's quite happy to corroborate everything I've said as well. This really has got way out of hand, and there's a lot more that happened there that day, which we can get into. That was just the beginning, basically, of my adventure for the day.
Absolutely. Voices for Freedom, my understanding, has even actually released, they've also done their own investigation, and they said, no, this guy isn't some sort of scumbag trying to mask the people in the tent setting fires. Is that correct? Have Voices for Freedom also been able to contact you? Oh, sounds like he may have gone offline there. That's okay. He might come back. He will come back. That'll be absolutely fine. I just want to sort of share another angle of what we did see going on in that situation. Yep, I can see. Alright, I can see also that some people are having bits of issues with the fact that Robert was not actually the person. He was not actually out there trying to be a scumbag, trying to do the things that those really idiotic people were trying to do. I'm just going to sort of play this. Please be aware that there is some language involved in it, so it may be a bit bad in that regard.
Hey! Stop throwing! Stop throwing!
And this guy goes inside the tent.
So, stop throwing!
Little bang there. This guy's holding people back.
I've been fighting here longer than you have, brother. All
while the police line is holding. The police line is holding back there. They're not moving. They stopped advancing for some reason. The guy comes out, fully masked up. No one had ever seen these people at the protest prior to this. They're both checking on it.
Yeah, but no, it's not worth it.
And they move away. Police line still holding, not going anywhere. There's the guys watching, fully masked, fully clocked up, and the fire.
Oh my god!
This guy here again doesn't seem shocked by the fire like everyone else around him.
You see, these guys seem to be working as a team.
They didn't seem shocked by what was going on around them. They didn't seem like shocked protesters that were under attack from the police. The police line didn't move. It halted for some reason, stopped advancing. And then the fire went off, and then all of a sudden the police have big hoses and they're advancing on people. I find this a little bit funny, and the fact that all of those guys looked, they spent a lot of time making sure that they couldn't be seen. I asked a lot of the protesters there, and a lot of the people that have been there the whole time, they only showed up that day. And they showed up, lit a fire, and went missing, okay? And then you've got the other guy looking out towards the police line, or up towards the police that were stationed outside Parliament. So it looks dodgy to me.
Yeah, so that's from one of the TikToks. That's just one example of what a lot of people have been saying. I'm not hating on those guys because I get it. Sometimes they get worried. We are living in the age where what should be conspiracy theory is actually accurate. So I'm not hating on them at all. However, there's a lot of issues that you're going to have if you just throw something out there but you don't do the background to check it. That's why the Daily Examiner, what we like to do is we like to go straight to the source and find out what's going on there. Robert, great, you're back on. So that's that video that was there. Is there any comment that you'd like to give around about that comment and the guy's sort of suppositions?
Sorry, Elliot, I didn't catch all of that.
No worries, man. Basically, you were there, you were calm. The person on that TikToker is sort of saying what a few others are saying, where it's like, oh my gosh, too calm. Must be a plant or something like that. Again, you've already advised as to why you are more calm because it's part of your job, and especially if you're in high risk situations. In terms of that, you also mentioned about the person who was doing that video, who took a video footage of you, and also I was just bringing up Voices for Freedom. So have you already spoken to some groups and other people who've asked you directly about the truth of that matter? It looks like he's just trying to physically get to some good internet. Poor guy. That's alright, that's absolutely fine. What I will say is that what happened on that day, where you've got that, look, Robert has been already discussing with people like Voices for Freedom. He's already talked to the person who took footage of him. He's speaking to these people about what actually happened. He is going there and he's saying, hey, why are you coming to me? Why are you telling me I've done this sort of thing? And this is actually part of the problem. If you jump in there, what we don't want to do is do what mainstream media do, which is mainstream media grab one tiny thing, take one little angle, and then they boost it all out. Don't forget, according to mainstream media, basically the protest was white supremacists and misogynists and Islamophobes and all the various rafter of things. Robert, we're not sure how long we've got you on for, so go for it. What would you like to say in terms of what's been happening and really, what do you want to say to the people who are out there believing this stuff? The big shot. Okay, it looks like he's still a bit frozen. That's alright, we keep going here. Again, he's in a bit of a semi-rural area. Again, I believe he's a Southlander. He's a mainlander. Alright, so one of the big ones there is, oh, there we go. Robert, it might even be better. How about if you want, try to take off your camera and then maybe just have your voice, and maybe that would work. Let us know if that's working. Oh, Damien's got a good one there. Thank you, Damien. Excellent. Go audio only. Absolutely. It's absolutely fine. And this is one of the things that does happen when we do tech sort of stuff. Oh, with South Island people. Alright. So, again,
Voice of Freedom checked it out. They said, yeah, no, it's fine. It's not him. All right. The organisers have been saying that this guy is not actually part of those scumbags who basically burned and tried to make this about themselves and tried to do it. Again, like I said, with mainstream media, what they did was they found a pink swastika, and from that pink swastika, that's when they decided to participate in their campaign of misinformation by saying that the protesters were white supremacists, anti-Semitic, and they were trying to do that. Whereas we all know that the swastikas were put there because they were stating that the government itself was acting quite like Nazis. Robert is someone who is just being wrong place, wrong time, I suspect. And again, his calmness, as someone who has worked with people who are in high-risk situations, as well as someone who has had to deal with emergency situations, I can tell you, you always have to look calm.
Can you hear me, Elliot?
The thick one. Oh, Robert, there we go. Are you coming to us audio only, are you?
I think so. Are you able to hear me okay there?
Absolutely. That's absolutely great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Damien, also for that request for audio only. Absolutely right. So, Robert, if you can hear me, in terms of that, there are groups out there who've already talked to you, like Voices for Freedom. Can you tell us, have people been asking you directly, are you that guy, are you a plant, are you Antifa? Has that been happening?
Yes, it has been. Yeah, obviously, I can prove quite readily that that's not the case. I missed some of the stuff you were covering earlier around what was happening when I came down in the video towards the tent, came past it, when I was calling out to the people throwing things at the police, trying to get them to stop. If anyone's looked at the footage just following that, they can see that my back is turned to the tent. I didn't see those guys go in there at the time. I was only aware of the fire when people started making noise about it, and it erupted. When you see me go back across the camera, walking across the front of the tent that's on fire, the reason I'm going there is because there is a gas bottle that someone has attempted to kick into the fire. So I picked that up and placed it on the other side of the path, well away from the fire, and then was involved in chasing and capturing a guy who was involved, whose mask had come off, and a girl filmed him. He grabbed her phone and took off down to the front gate at the bottom of the hill. Thankfully, the crowd apprehended him there, and I interrogated him. We got the girl's phone back with the help of the crowd. It wasn't just me. There was a lot of good people there who helped sort that out. And I then escorted him off the grounds, telling him in no uncertain terms that if he returned, he would be in big trouble. So if you've got any questions around any of that before we move on, because there's a lot more that happened after that as well.
Right, that's really powerful. There were people, I'm sure there were people taking, lives and live streams of that material. So you've talked with the person who was taking the film of you at all, and that person, I think there's a lot of people there. Was it again, sorry?
Yes, that's correct. The woman who filmed me by the tent leading up to and when it was on fire has contacted me, and she has corroborated the evidence that I've just relayed to you. She also had called out to the people to stop throwing things, and she actually came up and tapped me on the shoulder and said thanks or something similar for stepping in and trying to stop it.
Right, powerful. Anastasia has actually made a mention that you spoke. Is that correct? Did you speak?
I did a speech in Parliament grounds a bit over a week prior to that. Yes, I did. Right,
wow, awesome. So that was, again, lives will confirm all of this. So I think that's, wonderful. Well done. What did you speak about, if you don't mind me asking?
I spoke about how the current system was essentially irrelevant to us, that the protest was a living example of how we could self-govern, and that the system that we were speaking out against, their greatest fear is love, because it creates a world they cannot control.
Right, geez, powerful. We'll have to see if we can get that speech. We'll see if we can get it on our articles. Kia's asking, now this is a question that has been asked multiple times. I know that this is going to be a little bit repetitive for you, but I think it's important to just keep on bringing it up. Is Robert a cop? I think she's just done a little typo. Are you a cop, Robert?
Robert has never been a cop, never intends to be one, and quite frankly, although I have some personal friends within the force who are good people, and I know there are other good people in there, I have basically lost all respect and sympathy for the New Zealand police following what happened at that protest. There was a lot that I probably won't mention here for several reasons, one being personal safety, but that riot was no accident.
Right. I think I'm sort of hearing what you're saying between the lines. So I think it's really sad that yourself, even my own previous trust of the New Zealand police, taken a hit to the point where, we just don't trust them anymore, do we? Robert, there is a question that's been coming up again. I know that this will be a little bit repetitive. Can you tell us, first, if I might have gotten this wrong, are you a Southlander? Because that's what I said. And when did you go home? When did you eventually leave the protests?
So yes, I am a Southlander. I've lived there all of my life from the age of 5. Apart from working in Australia for several years, and I left Wellington late yesterday afternoon, or around 5 p.m. I think it was. I have not gone home. I'm working further up in the North Island, where we are engaged in deer control work with the helicopter, and that's where I am at present.
Right. I'm not sure if you can see the screen or not. Can you see the screen? Are you able to see what we've put up there?
Yes, I can see a photo of myself beside the helicopter with some deer.
Lovely. Oh, great work. And so that's culling them because they're growing too numerous and doing some real damage to the New Zealand environment. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. That photo, we're actually recovering the deer for processing and sale to export and domestic meat markets, but the work we're currently engaged in is just straight culling to reduce numbers because of environmental damage.
Got it. Right. So got it. So that's actually what so you are a Southlander. You've come up, you were at the protests, and you're doing some work in the sort of the mid-North Island, and that's to help cull the deer because they're getting out of hand.
That's correct, yes.
Great. Oh, excellent stuff. I'm just popping off. I'm just having a little look at the comments here. And look, Nicola's said something really good here. I really like what she's said. She said, "Thank you, Robert, for your service to Kiwis and being transparent." And that's absolutely right. I think, good on you for actually helping, because we do know that deers can cause a lot of havoc within our New Zealand environment. It's really great. Tell me, I know this might seem unrelated, but I want to bring it up. The firearm laws, which even though they did absolutely nothing, in fact we've had a spike in illegal firearm activity. As yourself, for a licensed firearm owner, I would assume, did the firearm law changes, have they affected your work at all, and for people around in your community?
Hugely so. The new firearm laws, when they were first brought in, or before they were initiated, created a period where the firearms that I use in my business, which are what are now termed prohibited firearms, which I require a special permit for, we were not allowed to use those for a period, from memory, of a couple of months, 2.5 months, something like that, which caused huge financial hardship for my business. really limited our effectiveness and capability to do our job. And then when the new laws were brought in, they did exactly what I had warned of in letters to the Commissioner and to the head of the firearms laws implementation at the time, that all they would do would be create a massive non-compliance and black market in firearms and an escalation in firearms-related crime, which is exactly what's happened. They penalised the law-abiding for the actions of allegedly one man, and all it did was made this country far more dangerous with regard to firearm-related crime. Just an absolute disaster.
Right, Robert, we getting back to the Freedom Village, we know, of course, I believe it was Labour MP Michael Wood who basically referred to the Freedom protest as a river of filth, a river of violence, of threats. You know, is he correct? Was the protest a lot of violence, a lot of misogyny, Islamophobia? Was it actually a bit of a violent place to be in?
For anyone who cares to look on my Facebook page, and I'd highly recommend that all the keyboard warriors that have been throwing these comments and attacks, personal attacks against me online, go and have a look at. You'll see an interview I did there with a lovely woman called Jackie West up by the Freedom Wall, and she asked me the same question, and I responded something along the lines of the worst violence that I have encountered there is hugging, death by hugging. I've been hugged to death ever since I've been there. Was no violence happening there. There was just a whole lot of beautiful people who were fellow men and women, and respect, taking personal responsibility for their own actions and helping each other out. It was a beautiful thing.
Lovely. Yeah, I think that's really good stuff. Just to have some responses in there. Tequila, Robert has actually mentioned, why didn't he put out the fire if he was jogging on the spot? He actually didn't see them, his back was turned to him, and that is actually shown by the camera footage. He did, however, move again, and that's where he's looking calm, but what he's actually doing is intercepting a gas bottle that was there because some dumb bastard decided to try to chuck that into the fire. I'll be honest, my view is that those dickheads who were throwing stuff at the police and trying to burn stuff, they weren't part of the protest. I wasn't down the protests, but it was actually by people who weren't part of the protest. They were scumbags who just decided to hijack and try to jump in there and just throw out their own anarchist ways, or there were some who absolutely did not understand the culture of the protests and didn't understand it at all. So I think that's something which also needs to be done. So I'm just having a look at some of these parts here because there are actually a really lot of comments coming through. So it looks like there's some big discussions here. Catherine has said, good on you, Robert, for being transparent. From a fellow Southlander. Yes, you guys are a bit like that. Robert, I just want to know, in terms of that, have you got any thoughts, or has anyone advised you, do you have any thoughts as to why you've been the target, if not purposeful, then definitely misaligned or misunderstood? Is there a reason that you think may have been why you might have been targeted by a lot of this vitriol, by a lot of this sort of confused anger towards you?
I think initially, primarily, it was, as I've alluded to, keyboard warriors who saw something, drew their own conclusions without knowing the full story, and just ran with it. I mean, we see it happen to people online all the time. There are a lot of people who seem to have nothing better to do with their lives than sit there in judgment of others without having even been there. So that was a big part of the initial reaction. There were some things happening around that tent that I can give a bit more detail on as well. You know, when I was standing there talking to those guys, trying to de-escalate things, there were two guys standing behind them throwing rocks at my head. You can see rocks hitting the tent when the guys are going in there.
Oh, sounds like he's sort of gone off a bit there. That's absolutely fine. Robert, can you hear us? You've sort of gone offline a little bit. I'm just going to pop some here. There's some really good stuff going on there. Thanks for speaking up. Yep, that's it in a nutshell. We've also got here, Julie has said, I'm not buying this, his language is too much like a cop. I'm even convinced it's the same person. Well, I think you mean to say I'm not even convinced it's the same person. Julie, that's fine. However, I'd have to say that I don't know what a cop's supposed to sound like. I suppose bullet form. Myself, I come into youth work a lot, and we actually have to speak very bullet form-ish when we're talking to other people, things like that, just because it's part of the job. Robert, are you there with us again?
Yes, I am, Elliot. Hopefully you can hear me again.
Awesome. No worries. Hey, look, I do actually have a bit of a strong question here, and this has come from someone who's been on one of the other links. Question: what damage have these lies done to you and your family? So that's come from one of our Twitterites. What damage have these lies done to you and your family? I hope it's not too tough of a question.
No, not at all. If anyone can just put themselves in the same position and understand that you have essentially the whole country dissecting your personal life and making judgment on you without all the facts, without any first-hand knowledge in most cases, and making comments as strong as waste him. You know, I've got 2 young girls at home and a partner, and you know, I'm a pretty calm guy, but if people are making comments like that towards me, you probably want to come face to face and make those comments, because I do not appreciate them at all, and you should have the guts and the courage of your convictions to stand behind them like I did at that protest. I really have very little respect for those people.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Daniel's also come up with a good point there. All the ones that were causing trouble were fully covered up. Cowards. Yes, they were fully covered up. Yes, they are also cowards. Absolute, I'm sorry, dickheads. Absolute dickheads. I really do think that. And Joanne has even put a mention in there. Not going to lie, thought he was dodgy. Sorry, and I think that's actually really good. I think it's a really good one to be able to accept that. Oh, whoops, actually might have stuffed it up. And I think there's nothing wrong with being able to apologise for that situation. Now, Robert, my understanding is that you also have a bit of a political history as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. So I stood as a candidate in Southland for the Advance NZPP coalition party during the last election with obviously Billy Tikahika and Jamie Lee Ross as co-leaders of that party. I felt that there was a lot going wrong with this country, and that would give me a platform to speak to the people and help raise awareness, something I've been doing for over 30 years now, trying to warn people of exactly where we're at in this nation, and even potentially worse that's coming, as I'm sure you're well aware. And I'm now involved with the New Nation Party, NMP, which has got some very good policies around how we fix this very broken nation. Some very good people involved, as you well know, and a genuine concern and commitment to the people of this country, particularly around self-governance, changing the system so that the people have the power and the control of their own destiny, not a bunch of elites in the beehive who have no care, no empathy, no concern for our well-being or future. And so that's what I'm involved with currently, and continuing on with.
Powerful. NNP, New Nation Party. Yes, I do know some of the people who are in it. I think it's starting to rack up quite strongly, quite nicely. I like some of the policies that are going on there, especially in terms of making it equal, that all Kiwis are born equal. And I think that's actually quite important there. Before we move on, I do have a couple of other questions that have been repeated a lot, and they keep, why isn't he asking for the hoodie? So Robert, were you wearing a hoodie, and what did you wear on underneath? I know these might be silly, but we want to be able to say to all of the people that, hey, look, we've asked as many questions as you can. What was your fashion? What was your fashion sense on that day?
Yeah, sure, valid question, because there was a lot of speculation around that. All I had on was a polo shirt underneath a merino wool hoodie, a glowing sky merino hoodie. And as I said earlier, the way the seams run in that gave it an appearance that there may have been something underneath it. I can assure you I wasn't wearing a stab vest or any other type of vest. I was there with my girls for the day with no previous knowledge there was going to be a riot, other than we had intel the night before from within Voices for Freedom and other groups I'm associated with that the police were going to come in force. So we arrived there around midday on a plane from Queenstown. We walked in, had lunch, and then walked straight into basically the start of the riot, or start of the police movement to evict people from Parliament grounds. And
Right.
yeah, I had to be wearing a blue hoodie and a cap and sunglasses. Yeah.
All right, awesome. Look, again, Andrew has come in here. I was asking questions about this man, but now I feel satisfied. He's got a good heart, was here for the right reasons, and I think that's what's really good. Anastasia! Anastasia! Shocking little question there by Anastasia, but I understand what she's saying. She's saying that, wow, getting the 3rd degree, yes, it is indeed. But we want to be able to make sure that we ask these real strong questions that have been kept on being repeated. We've also had another question. You were talking about the rock throwing on the tent. So are you able to take us, because now we just want to know, a lot of us want to know, because we've only had little bits of views on that live stream. People throwing rocks on the tent, what happened after that point?
Okay, so that was occurring while I was confronting people who had been throwing things at the police. There were 2 individuals, one who was unmasked by someone else, and the girl took a photo or film footage of with her phone, who he then stole the phone from, and as I recounted before, attempted to escape with it but was caught and her phone returned. But those 2 were throwing rocks directly at me while I was trying to stop them throwing stuff, and you can see them hitting the tent. Following that, you see me come across in front of the tent again while it's on fire, because I've seen a guy kicking a gas bottle down towards the tent, obviously trying to create an explosion. So I've picked that up, and then, as I've also recounted already, placed that on the other side of the footpath there, well away from the fire, so as it won't explode and cause injuries to people there.
Absolutely. Oh no, well said and well done. Really good on you. I think that's really awesome. Debbie's come in. All good, Robert. Those of us in Southland support you. We know you're I don't know if that's a Southland word. It might be one of your people's jargon. I know that you guys roll your R's quite a lot, but hey, that's fine. We accept you all. So, that's
noticeable by her accent. Hey, just one other thing I'd like to address too, Elliot. There were some photos there of me talking to a girl and then hugging her, and I'd just like to recount what happened there, if I may.
Absolutely. I think the team may have even gotten some of that. Is that possibly the person here? There was someone running around there with various pictures. Again,
there's a photo where you can see me. I'm giving a girl a hug, and she was also standing there throwing things at the police, and I went up to her and asked her to stop, and she was in a very emotional state. She said that she had lost her job, her home, her car had just been repossessed. She'd lost everything. She had nothing left to lose, and she didn't really care anymore. And I said to her, this won't fix it. Just let me give you a big hug. So I gave her a hug, and she calmed down. And then I carried on. Sadly, I saw her later on throwing stuff again, but that's what happened there. There were other photos of me up on the police line as well. Again, I had my girls with me all the time. What I was doing up there, and again, I stay very calm in these situations. Anyone that knows me knows how I handle stress and pressure and risk. And what I wanted to do was walk along and make eye contact with the riot squad and try to get a sense of whether they really wanted to be there, really wanted to be doing this to their fellow Kiwis. And around 2/3 of them from that exercise doing that, I felt didn't really want to be there. They were just following orders, doing what they were told. But amongst them, there were some who were very much on board with wanting to harm fellow Kiwis, certainly exercise what they'd been trained to do. And they had some very powerful motivators behind them, driving them forward, getting them to do what they were doing. So that's what was going on there. I did speak to one of them. He tried to push me over and yelled something at me, so I stepped back up to him and leant in and asked him what he had said to me. And he repeated something fairly vulgar and tried to push me over again. So I kept moving because he was obviously trying to escalate the situation. And then if you would like, I can also go into the details of what happened around by the Freedom Wall, because that was a whole nother altercation with people who were throwing stuff at the police and what happened there, which was culminated in the end of my activities for the day.
Yep, yes, please do.
So I heard quite a commotion from that area when I was down by the front gate area. So I went up the steps to see what was happening, and there was around half a dozen people, not all males. There was one or possibly two females involved as well, throwing everything from bricks to pieces of wood to metal bars at the police there. So I got in front of them and tried to de-escalate things, tried to prevent a couple of them from continuing to throw things, which didn't go down very well from their perspective. And as I was trying to prevent one guy from throwing a lump of wood, the other guy with the metal bars wrapped one around the side of my head, which slowed me down a little bit. Didn't put me down, but it slowed me down. And a lovely first aid lady and another guy who has contacted me online, Josiah, if you're listening, thank you very much for what you did. It was very brave, and they came in and got me out of there. And while I was standing on the steps, getting my wits about me, one of the riot squad guys who I had just attempted to stop people throwing stuff at, pepper sprayed me in the side of the face to the point that I couldn't see anything in it. Someone helped me down the steps with the girls, and they took me to the medic station to get that fixed up. But yeah, it was a pretty, having gone through all that and then to have these attacks was a pretty disheartening experience for a start. I'm over it now. I realise that there's always going to be people who, for want of a better term, make up their own stories to suit their own narratives or their own emotive states, and we can never do anything about that. So hopefully this will help write the record, and in most people's minds anyway. There are some, I don't think, that no matter what was presented, they would have their own narrative and would run with it, irrespective of the facts.
Well, I tell you what, Robert, what's quite powerful is that when you went to hug that person and she gave you that really good story, that's actually a good lesson for me. I've been sitting here going, nah, those people who burnt the tents and basically threw massive bricks, basically could have killed some of the cops there, they're absolute dickheads. However, you and your story about going up to that lady, hearing her struggle, her pain, her trauma, and then trying to help her out by just giving her a bit of a hug, that helps to even correct my misunderstandings. So I can absolutely see, some people have jumped on something and then it's become a bit of a mob mentality. And I think that is incredibly dangerous to find. Tell me, do you think actually over the course of the 3 weeks, do you think there were what we might call plants? Were there police there? Were there other people who were infiltrating the protests, and either for the state or for people who just hate the freedom that the people were standing for? Do you think that did actually happen in some cases?
Oh, look, I know that for a fact. I had a friend who was running security there for a week. Most definitely the police had agents in there recording, watching. They even caught someone in there taking photos of the donations books one night. There were gates being locked, people filming. That's not conspiracy theory stuff. We know that was happening. And I'd just like to make the point too, quite clearly, that the first 3 people that I encountered who started throwing stuff at the police, all the people online who have made up these stories about, there were plants in there and that, I agree with you. Those first 3 guys were not protesters, and the first time I confronted them before that video footage, I'd already been down there once, and you can hear me start saying when I'm coming down to them, I'm yelling at them going, I've already effing told you. They were not protesters. They all had balaclavas over their faces, and they surrounded me, tried to intimidate me and scare me off. They were not protesters, and they had no answers to what I was saying. They couldn't refute it, and they melted back into the crowd until I'd left and been up with that girl for a bit before they started again. I alluded earlier to evidence that shows there was a pre-planned, orchestrated attempt to incite violence, and I believe to allow the police to facilitate the reaction that they did for the media in particular. We have evidence of that being the case. I can't say that it's fully corroborated or provable in a court of law at this point, but there are some very good people working on that. There is a faction within the police that have a history, and that's all I'll say here. Our country is literally being taken over, and a lot of people still don't quite realise exactly what we're up against, how big it is and how evil it is, and these people will basically do whatever it takes to achieve their end game, which is, of course, a totalitarian China-type surveillance, cashless society, and the crushing of lawful protest and dissent is a big part of that, and they need to be able to try and cement in the minds of the majority of the population that we are a minority and that we are violent and we are a river of filth, as Mr. Woods so kindly termed us. And I think really we have seen nothing yet as to how low they will stoop to silence any opposition to what they're trying to achieve. So yes, there were people in there who were state actors, as I like to call them, who initiated that violence. I know I met them personally. I made eye contact with them. I spoke to them. I felt their presence around me. They were not us. Yes, there were people who joined in once they had stirred them up, and they were us. And I talked to some of them, and I watched them, and I felt their pain. There's a lot of people that have been just totally destroyed financially, physically, mentally, spiritually by what has happened in this country, and they were just lashing out in pain and anger, and I can understand that. but it's not how we win. You know, you can hear me say that when I'm talking to those guys before the tent set on fire, and I said, let them be the bad guys. In other words, you know, if we are to win this, we have to be like Gandhi. We let them beat us, let them persecute us, let them do whatever they're going to do to us, because that will win the hearts and minds of the people when they see that, when they see evil manifesting like that. But if we retaliate with violence and aggression, or we initiate violence, we lose the support of the majority of the people, and we will fail. So that's why I was doing what I was doing. You know, I was so upset and angry at those people, because they had essentially destroyed what we were trying to achieve there at that protest, which was to prove to the world that, you know, peace and love can actually prevail and win. And we lost our discipline. We lost the narrative, and we need to work very hard to build it back.
No, powerful. Yeah, well said. Geez, absolutely well said. So the mandates look like they're starting to lose a narrative. Labour Party is starting to lose international evidence, as well as their actions are starting to just stop all of these mandates. What are your thoughts? I guess, what are the last thoughts? What are your last thoughts about the mandates, New Zealand mandates, the New Zealand government, how they've been restricting people from being able to go into shops, travel, you know, the heartbreak from not being able to say goodbye to family on the last time on this earth, you know, and this government's way in which they've reacted to COVID-19. Should we still have the mandates? Should we not? What are your thoughts?
To be blunt, we should never have had them. What has been done to this country, to the people of this country, not just by this government. Let us never forget that every member of Parliament, every current member of Parliament, stayed silent while our basic human rights and freedoms were stripped from us. All on shonky science, false modelling, false data. That's all coming out now, and part of the reason I stay ever optimistic is because the truth always prevails, and it's coming out in a big rush now. But the mandates should never have happened. None of this should have happened. And some people may think, well, that's very simplistic and easy to say after the fact, but for those of us who knew why this was done many years before it ever happened, who knew that it was coming, who knew what it was all about, I make no excuse for having that knowledge and trying to warn as many people as possible that this was an orchestrated event. It still is. And until people realise that, we still have a lot of work to do in this country. And hopefully I can help in waking up my fellow countrymen and women and healing this nation, building it back much better than it was. We don't want to go back to where we were. We don't want to go back to normal. We want to make a better country for everybody, where we're all free, where we all control our own destiny, not some group of elites in the beehive who think they know what's best for us.
Absolutely. Tell me, what are your thoughts also, again, this is one of the last things we want to sort of speak on. Not one politician came out publicly and presented themselves to the protesters, which my understanding is that's a precedent. I cannot remember in my lifetime, nor even when I've looked into it before, I don't think there's ever been a time where where the politicians have holed up in the beehive, and all of them, even though some people say, oh, David Seymour, no, all of them, none of them actually came out to say anything at all, even if they don't agree with them, to allow the protesters to speak. What are your thoughts about the beehive shut shop and zero politicians, all the Christians, the conservatives, the libertarians, the leftists, the socialists, every single politician just backed straight away and just didn't go out publicly to engage with the protesters? What are your thoughts on that? Why do you think they did that?
Well, firstly, there was a memorandum of agreement between all of the parties in Parliament that they would not challenge the COVID narrative, that they would all go along with it in unison. Now, I'm sure some of them would have done that with good intent, thinking that they were doing what was best for the country. I would hope that some of them did. I tend to be a little bit cynical, but the end result was the same regardless of what their initial intent was that they were in total breach of their contract with the people, which is to represent them, to hear their voice and to act on it. What we have seen is a total abrogation of their responsibilities as MPs, representing their electorates and their voters. As I know you're well aware, we operate under contract law. What we're dealing with our government is a corporation, unbeknownst still to many people, sadly, and they operate under contract law, and they're in total breach of their contract with the people, as are the police. I'm a pretty calm guy, but I often joke at meetings I speak at that I was an angry young man when I grew up. I'm now a much angrier older man. What has been done to this country is criminal, literally criminal, and it needs to be tidied up. Yeah.
Yep. Just to ask a couple of quick ones from our audience. Anne has said, are you telling us if your party had made it into Parliament, so if NNP had made it into Parliament, or perhaps Advance, you would go against her and come out and talk? Would you have done that?
Of course. There's no, anyone who knows me knows why I'm here, and I don't want to be a politician. I have no aspirations for political power or power of any kind. I abhor it, but that's why I'm here, because I want to be a part of dismantling this current system that puts the power in the hands of a few and give it back to the people. And that's my sole purpose for being here, and I'll fight for it until I can't. So
well
yes,
said,
I would be talking to the people straight away.
Absolutely.
That's what's supposed to happen.
Yep, absolutely. Maria's come out. New Conservatives did engage with protests and with St Peters, yes. Also, Matt King was there as well for several days. He's also done quite a few lives trying to push that, and he also, my understanding is, he's a spokesperson for United We Stand, which of course won its very great victory that the mandates are unlawful towards soldiers and the police. We also, I believe, also NNP was there throughout, and I think there was even another one was there as well, but I don't remember which one. I do apologise for that.
Yes.
Look,
yeah.
Sorry,
so
Robert?
Matt. Yeah. So Matt King, I followed a lot of what he had to say about the protest, and he was obviously there, I think, a couple of times for a period of time, and he said a lot of good stuff, highlighting the injustice around the whole situation, and particularly the fact that the politicians, not one of them, stood up for our basic human rights or would come and listen to the people. So much kudos to Matt for what he did and speaking out on the issues and raising the profile. And I've never met the guy, but I would like to have a bit of a talk to him sometime soon. Hopefully the feeling's mutual. As far as NNP, the founder of the New Nation Party, Michael Jacob, he flew down to Alexandra in his helicopter and brought back 2,000 nectarines or peaches, or might have been both, or it could have even been apricots, I can't remember, but and there was money that was donated towards the protest. Yeah, as well. So, we were walking our talk, supporting the protest and trying to help out in whatever way we could. Now, some people would, and rightfully, look at that as quite cynically as a plug for a political party or whatever. Well, it is. I'm anyone that knows me, again, I'm straight up. I don't beat around the bush. But the only way we're going to fix this country is through a multi-pronged approach, and one of those prongs is getting inside the political system and deconstructing it and rebuilding it how we want it to serve the people. And if people won't participate in that, then we're never going to achieve it. So I'd just leave people with that thought that whether it's NMP or someone else, but you need to back people who are politically going to work for the people, to give the power back to the people to govern themselves, because we don't have that at the moment. We have a literally a tyrannical dictatorship running this country, and we're in big trouble if we don't stop it.
No, that's absolutely right. And I was absolutely appalled that not one. There are some politicians in there who I actually do trust quite a lot, and who I hold up as really good people. And I believe I'll be speaking with one of them, Simon O'Connor. Myself and Brendan Malone will be on an interview, and I'll be very fascinated to see what Simon O'Connor sort of says, because I do have a lot of trust and faith in that particular guy. Also, Tanya has brought up another person who I couldn't remember. That was Sue Gray and Alan Simmons from Outdoors Party. Absolutely right. Cops broke Alan's hip. Yes, that is correct. So it was just shocking sort of police escalation of violence. So yeah, absolutely right. Look, we've gone 5 minutes over, but Robert, the last word is yours. What would you like to say to all of our people out there? And look, I just want to let you know, I've been sort of casting a bit of an eye on the comments. It's gone from, you were this guy, you were a plant, I think you've covered everything that I can see, you've covered everything that you can find, and then you've started to speak about the forthrightness of what you are actually doing. And now people are starting to see that side of things as well. What would be your last word to all of our people, all of the Kiwis, all of the New Zealanders out there? What is the last thought that you'd like to put out there before we finish up tonight?
Just firstly that I don't resent anyone questioning my actions there. Anyone who stands for freedom and freedom of speech and the right to question anything, I fully support you. But I would just caution that we need to make sure that we have the full story and the facts before we start condemning people. And on a more positive note, I would just like to say that, what we saw at the protest up until that last day was a beautiful thing. And we can create that on a national scale if we want to. And it's just a numbers game, and it's a belief in ourselves and our abilities and the power that we all have within us. If we truly believe that we can do this, there's an old saying, if you believe you can't, you're right. But the flip side, obviously, is if you believe you can, you're right. And if we as a nation can unify and put aside our petty differences, racial disharmony, everything else that divides and splits us, and focus on how we want this country to really be and work together to achieve it, they can't stop us. They really can't. They don't have a hope. And that's what we have to learn from this, and come together again in unity with a clear focus about what we want to achieve and where we want to be for our children and future generations. And then let's just do it.
Beautiful. Robert Wilson, thank you so much for appearing on our show. Thank you so much for what you have been doing, for what you did, and for what you will do. We want to say thank you so much. Absolutely wonderful. And to our awesome audience, thank you for participating. Thank you for agreeing and disagreeing, for throwing in there. That's free speech. That's discourse. We want you to agree. We want you to disagree. We want you to get into good verbal discourse and fights over it. That's actually how we become better and stronger in ourselves, especially as a beautiful nation of New Zealand. So in the meantime, God bless you, and God bless New Zealand.
Thank you, Elliot.